looking for Christian nationalism in the news
hmm
as part of our discussion. You said today should be the state is the church.
Yep.
Okay, that's an interesting thing because years and years ago, I read this science fiction story,
Yeah.
and in it we became a theocracy, and anyone who was not part of the in group didn't get as good a job, didn't had to there was a state religion and you had to follow it.
Yep.
And it didn't matter if you believed it or not, you still had to follow all the rules whether you did or not. And that really echoes a lot of what we're seeing, especially with like the current executive orders that do things like say that it's now illegal for people to proselytize at work, and as long as it's quote unquote not uh,
Yep.
harassing. How
Yep.
how do you, when you are the employee and your boss tells you they want you to go to prayer meeting with them, how does that not become threatening? Seriously.
It That's a great question because it is threatening. Like
Exactly.
it's a f- it's if you're not that religion, it's threatening. That's one of the reasons there's the Establishment Clause in the U.S.
Correct.
in the con in for the U.S. for how we describe religion and why there's a separation and a wall between the two. And it's very important that we maintain that wall because it's a great it was a great point that was called out yesterday by somebody else. Kasim, I forget his last name. He was on with Joe Walsh last night.
Hmm.
And he was talking about and it's something that I've said too, is there is no path you cannot have a democracy, a free functioning democracy with a state mandated religion. It cannot work. You cannot be in a theocracy of any sort and it truly be, yes, thank you. Um, uh, and Kashim Rashid,
Okay.
sorry. Um, you cannot be in a functioning democracy with a state mandated religion because then you are not equally applying the laws to all religions
Correct.
or all peoples. You're always putting one group above the other. And that's when the state becomes the church too,
Hmm.
is then it's a mandated religion. And you can see that in Christian nationalism. If you
Hmm.
go into Christian nationalist churches, most Christian iconography has been taken off the wall and replaced with flags, with the US flag to be specific. And when you see a flag flying inside a church, not outside, because it's okay that a church flies a flag outside because they're part of the US, like
Right.
they're part of our country. Second, it goes inside and the pulpit becomes a political stand, it stops being just church and it becomes the state too,
I'm
because
I'm
that
surprised
is.
to hear you say that, coming from where I do, because
Mhm.
growing up, there was a Christian flag, which I don't know if you've ever seen the Christian flag. It has like a cross on it and a shield and a
Is it the one with the blue?
yeah
There's one with a blue and red,
background and has a show. Yeah, and it has
and then the rest
a
is
cross.
white.
Yeah,
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 I see those a lot here in Arkansas.
yeah. It used to be there would be the Christian flag on one side and the United States flag on the other at the back of all the pulpits growing up. They always
Interesting.
displayed a Christian flag, and it's not the one that they talk about now, like the Appeal to Heaven flag or anything. It was just a regular old, and I can remember seeing those in almost every church, especially I can remember sometimes in Vacation Bible School having a pledge to the American flag and then a pledge to the Christian flag.
Mhm.
This
That is Christian nationalism.
so it's interesting to hear us say it now because I'm like, wait, I did that,
Yeah. Yeah, you were in that.
Yeah,
You look at churches like that and it's scary to think that that's been happening for a long time.
it has,
The
because that's
even scarier
1970.
Yeah, the even scarier part is now it's everywhere, and it's being taught everywhere, and the wall has fallen because it's no. I don't think I'm overblowing that. I think it is everywhere. I think it's very pervasive and it's disgusting that it's everywhere because they have taken. I'm not saying that every church or
Right.
every group that has a flag inside of it is truly nationalist. It's the ones that turn the pulpit into from a sermon into a political charade. That's nationalism, and that's become very pervasive in a lot of areas. And if you look at it now, the wall between that has fallen because the Trump administration is fighting to get that rule where churches can legally.
Actually, they've already had the IRS announce they won't do it.
Yeah,
There is no Johnson Amendment applicable anymore to churches.
which
But
is which is nationalism taking over.
Glenn actually said he was Episcopal, and they're very liberal. And Episcopals have always had the Christian flag too. They might not have had the pledge allegiance to the Christian flag thing and so forth. But yeah, the Episcopal flag actually is what I think of when I think of the original Christian flag. As I was told, that was the Christian flag. And now they have, of course, uh, more advanced flags that have more to say.
Yeah.
Um,
And I want to make sure I'm clear because Glenn, you bring up a good point, and I do want to make sure I'm clear on this, is I'm not saying all churches and all
right,
groups that have the American flag inside of them, let's say, are Christian nationalists.
right,
That said, and to have a country's flag within a church that is not from this country or of this country or founded out of this country or founded by this country does implicate nationalist tendencies because they want to display a national identity of some sort that they are
right,
part of the overall group. That being
right.
said, that gets taken too far when it becomes, like I said, a preacher giving political sermons and not actual scripture sermons and like biblical sermons or from the Torah or
Mhm.
from any of your holy books. Like if you're taking it and then turning it political, where they now are talking about how you should be voting, who you should vote for, I don't think churches should have any place in sermons for that. I think it's okay outside of the church if your church group talks about it and your community talks about it, because everybody should talk about these things, or your, say, pastor talks about it. But I don't
Right.
think they should be allowed to talk about it inside the church in that official capacity.
What is funny to me and ironic in all this is that for years, because of the fact that they had the whole, actually was as the moral majorities told the GOP, if you adopt the platform of anti-abortion, we can get you a unified voting block every time. Because they figured if they voted to save the babies, you would vote against your own self-interests because it was so important to save the innocent. And so when I was growing up in church, you were pretty much told, look, you've got to vote to save the babies, or otherwise you're complicit in killing them and you're going to go to hell. That's a really easy way to say vote for the Republicans without actually ever mentioning the GOP or anything else. They've been they've been telling you who to vote for from the pulpit since at least 1975.
Mhm.
They just haven't actually said vote for President Trump. They just said you have to vote GOP or you're killing babies,
Yep.
is how
Or
they
you
framed
or
it
you have
before.
to vote for you have to vote with your conscience and know
Correct,
which person is the one who is really advocating for the unborn. Or
correct.
they would use key words, dog whistles, to be
Mhm.
specific. Things
So
like I'm pro-life is a dog whistle in the nationalist community for you're a pro-natalist, which means
yep,
you want babies born, but you don't give a shit what happens after. Like there's natalists that we need to talk about too, which are part of
Mm-hmm.
the Christian nationalist community. I
Yep.
think that's a very different conversation though,
Mm-hmm.
because we can go into that because there's pro and
Oh,
anti-natalists, and
I've
we
got
need
all
to
kinds
talk
of
about
them.
both. Yeah, we need to talk about both because they're
Right.
really dangerous on both sides, and they've been radicalized really, really badly. So I
Mm-hmm.
think we definitely a later conversation, but like it's still that idea. It's just they they're trying to tell you how to live every facet of your life.
Right.
And that includes how you vote or who you
And
vote for. Now they're just doing it instead of the dog whistle, they're screaming it from a bullhorn.
mhm. And the hard part is, and the thing that bothers me, of course, is that there are a lot of people who have been raised in this. They don't get to see that it's not reality. They're told that it's okay to legislate your version of belief because everybody should have those values. And that too becomes really wrong. Because it lets us, well, this one becomes hard for me because you sit there and you start discussing ethics and so forth. And
Hmm.
I think you have a right to act as you believe, and as long as what you're doing doesn't hurt another person, it shouldn't be illegal. I think
Yeah,
that
I'm
and your bodily autonomy then says, okay, I have a right for this, I have a right for that. And as long as your rights don't infringe on another person, they should never be in question.
correct. Correct.
And
That was what I was
unfortunately,
basically taught. It's a very
yeah,
libertarian viewpoint is if you it's a very Christian viewpoint because it's the golden rule, do unto others as you want done unto you.
correct.
So, like that, I was taught that as a kid. That's a very Christian, Judeo-Christian belief
Hmm.
is do unto others. And that
Right.
means is what I do at you is what I want done back at me. So I'm going to reflect myself out to you. But these people reflect the most like vile
Well,
versions of their belief system.
they're also kind of told, "Do unto others as they do to you." There is this
The eye
entitlement.
for an eye thing.
Yeah, there's this definite entitlement, and it's like right now in Puerto Rico, they've made it illegal to give anybody um transitioning drugs of any kind until they're 21. And we have people that were in transition that are now losing access to medication and being forced to detransition because it doesn't fit some people's values. And it should be, if it's between you and your doctor, leave it between you and your doctor. The government shouldn't have a right to tell you how to deal with your body within. I mean, I guess I can understand them saying no, you shouldn't be allowed to kill yourself, but I'm personally with the way our health
Mm.
insurance is, I'm kind of a euthanasia human being these days because
See, it's to me, it's the like I live with fibro. I live
Mhm.
with a disease that is an illness that is debilitating at
Yeah,
times, that takes everything from me.
me too. Well, not fibro, but
And I know you understand entirely, Lisa, but
yeah.
and it's this thing is like if you believe in bodily autonomy, it's from life, it's or from conception in their
Right.
view. But in my view, as a person who is raised Jewish and has Jewish values in
Mhm.
because I come from a Jewish family, and who has French Catholic values because I come from a French Catholic family, is on the Jewish side, life begins at birth,
Birth.
not at conception, not in the womb, at birth. When you take your first breath
Mhm.
is when life begins by the Jewish faith.
Mhm.
Jewish women have been able to get abortions their entire lives or their
In
entire history of Judaism because that's part
fact,
of
Jewish midwives could actually perform abortions for other Jewish
correct.
women. It used to be that that midwifery before, I don't know if you know this, but before they created the MD certification program, when they started licensing MDs, MDs decided they needed to take over women's healthcare.
Yep.
Before that, midwives did everything. And then they pushed midwives out. And when they pushed midwives out, they also took away the ability to get abortions.
Yes.
And it has a lot to do with actually the licensing of medical doctors in the beginning of the 20th century.
Yeah. And so looping that back too is if you believe in like full life from birth to death, human bodily autonomy, death has to be a choice too. And I understand suicide as like a younger age
Right,
is a very, very, very touchy topic
right,
and can be very, very touchy, especially if it's on the assisted suicide side where this person like maybe really, really does just it's the end. We cannot tell people, especially at the end of their lives, that they can't die. Like
right,
I live with fibro. In 60 years, if I'm fucking laying on my deathbed of another disease that's slowly killing me, I don't want to fucking sit there. Like, if I know that it's going to kill me in a year and I'm done,
right,
it's my choice too. Like, at that point, when you're old and you're ready to go, maybe there's an age limit that we start that at, or like a sickness percentage or whatever it may be. Because there are certain people who are in hospice care, like Sunny just said, or just are dying, that it's more ethical to let them die faster. We do it for our pets. We do it for dogs. We do it for animals that we love and
right,
care for. We do it for other beings on this planet. Like
right,
we take care of those around us,
right.
the animals more often better than we do ourselves. Like we could
Oh, yeah.
apply that same practice. It's your choice to end. It's not your choice to just end it randomly or like abusively or kill yourself and then other people's, but it's your choice, especially if you're dying of a disease that is killing you. Like you're like near death with cancer. I ain't
Mhm.
gonna fucking stop you from dying. In
Yeah.
fact, I'd rather help you in a way,
I
whatever way you need.
I told my kids that if I get cancer, I'm going to hospice, in part because I can't justify having to sell my house to survive. And with the cost of cancer care in our current healthcare system, that's what would happen. And
Hmm.
I'm assured that I should think more about the kids, but I'm like, selling this house and splitting it would get each of them at least a moderate house or a good down
Hmm.
payment for a nicer house.
Hmm.
And these days, that's so hard with how bad the economy is.
Yeah.
I'd rather die than use up my money to live an extra 6 months.
And
You know?
and and who would I be to tell you no? Like, if
Right,
that was your choice, who would I be to tell you no? But that's that's people who care. We're pro-life. That's real pro-life. Really looping this back to what we started it on is the moniker of pro-life. Is pro-life is from birth to death or from beginning of life in your viewpoint, whatever
right,
your view is on when life begins to death, you
right,
have to still take into account the person who is alive, say the mother who's carrying that new life. She has more precedent than
right.
than the baby because she's here. She's like
It's
she's walking on the earth. She got people who care and love about her. She got herself who cares and loves about her. Like it don't
well,
matter.
it's
She
like
should take precedent.
there was the girl who died in Texas on the day she got really sick on the day of her shower. Okay, they wanted this baby, but she got really sick. They refused to do anything about it until they were sure the baby was completely dead, and by then
Hmm.
she was in sepsis. And the mom said, "She could have had another baby, but she
Hmm.
can't when she's dead."
Nope.
And that's where this turns into it's interesting because 'cause they're also usually very much pro death penalty.
Yeah.
And you find so many people who are like badly convicted and everything else still. You look at the Innocence Project, and it's like, these people are like, oh no, go ahead and kill them, because if they're innocent, they'll just go to heaven. So who cares? Just kill them. And it's like, no, no.
Hmm.
Let's do life imprisonment, and then if for any reason we made a mistake, we can take it back. You
Yeah.
know, it's but no, it's interesting because I've been like trying to look up stuff that kind of says, church as the state. Um, to
So
kind of go
I,
over this. What'd you look
yeah,
up?
no, I go ahead. I just wanted to say I use that title sort of as a way to open this conversation
Okay.
into how the church is morphing into the state, what a theocracy
Right.
really means for us. And this discussion is really important because bodily autonomy is not something that nationalists believe in, that these Christian nationalists believe in, because they're pro-natalists,
Mhm.
and that's about it. Like, they want you to have babies, they want you to have a lot of babies. They just don't care about you after that.
Right. Well,
And yeah.
this is an August 4th article from Americans United for Church and State, or for separation of church and state.
Hmm.
And this is interesting because it says that Christian nationalism grew in prominence in the 1950s. So their whole Make America Great Again, in part
Yep.
due to a campaign by corporations to undermine public support for President Roosevelt's New Deal programs. Now, I've said that they've been trying to get the New Deal undone since it passed. And apparently, they also used Christianity as part of a reason. They say that conservative Christian leaders frame unregulated capitalism as a divinely sanctioned right. And the New Deal was un-American because of the fact it taxed income, it provided a safety net, etc. Hello, Shar. And
Hey,
then in the
Sean, how are
60s,
you?
in the 60s and 70s, they emphasized the nuclear family as the ideal American unit and a symbol of order. This reactionary response was to progressive social movements and legal wins, the civil rights era, gay liberation, feminism, um, Green versus Connolly that denied tax exemptions to segregated schools, and Roe v. Wade. So apparently, Christian nationalists have actually been functioning at the edges and trying to get things back as part of the GOP from the beginning. But the extremist wing of the GOP is now ascendant. And apparently, our House Speaker Mike Johnson, which you've complained about a lot, has told a Christian group recently that under Trump, God has been advancing at the hand of forceful men.
Yep.
And they're perfectly proud of the fact that they are creating, but there's a Faith and Freedom Coalition, which
Hmm.
is, and they apparently had a Road to Majority conference, which is probably why they're now trying to gerrymander everything, because the only way to keep it will be to gerrymander and so forth. But at his speech, Mike Johnson said, I don't know if this is an appropriate citation of the book of Matthew, but it says from the time of John the Baptist until today, the kingdom of God has been advancing at the hand of forceful men, and forceful men take hold of it. And that is just what we're going to do. Trump discounted barriers to religion and government, saying, they said separation between church and state, they told me. I said, all right, let's just forget about that for this time. That's Trump.
There is no separation because in terms of this administration, there's no separation of church and state.
Right.
Trump, it doesn't matter if Trump is a believer in any of it or not. They don't care. They
No.
don't need belief. They need power and access to power. And they
Right.
have both right now.
Right.
Trump's faith leader is a Christian nationalist.
Right.
Like we said, the preacher of the house is a Christian nationalist. He has referred to himself as having his Moses moment. Like
Right.
he's getting ready to part the Red Seas. That's that first before he you part the Red Seas comes plague and death and disease and
Right.
destruction. Like you don't lead yourself to salvation from nothing. They can't save themselves from a good system. Like they're not saving us from a system that was working or saving us from a system. They're replacing it with nothing. They're just tearing it down. And it's just like the whole idea that they are separating anything at this point is laughable because the ideas are the same. What's coming from church pulpits are also coming from political leaders. They use faith as a cudgel for everything.
Right.
So you can't criticize a Christian in most government buildings, basically, and say that your idea isn't right because it's based on faith. But you can criticize Jewish people, you can criticize Muslims, you can criticize Buddhists, you can criticize Taoists, you can criticize anybody under the sun except for Christians and Catholics who are specifically of this certain grouping because they have made themselves into these little baby victims and little, oh, I can't do anything. You're being
Grievances have been
so
part of their
mean to
politics.
me.
Yeah.
And what is the one thing you can't do anymore? You cannot criticize people on the right. They get so mad and they
They
go, "Oh,
call us snowflakes.
you're being anti-Semitic. You're being a bigot towards Christians. You're persecuting me. You're hurting me." That's all they fucking do.
Yeah.
It's to make us feel bad that we're given that and to make people think that we're being mean to them. Yeah, red flakes. They're just they're just stupid Russian red flakes that are falling down and weakening our country because a lot of it's also backed by Russia and Russian propaganda. The Russian church, Orthodox Church, influenced and inserted itself into
Right.
the Christian far right movement because it fits. It's the same thing. Their belief system fit really well on misogyny. So they're like, ooh, we got to weigh in. And then they took over with the culture side through the NRA because that's a
Mhm.
Russian funnel of money. That was found out and publicized everywhere that they just took a whole bunch of money. And what are the three things that the Christian nationalists love the most? Gods, guns, and country. At least they say country. It's really two things, God and guns. And God is sort of questionable in that. I think it's really just guns they pray to. Um,
The Public Religion Research Institute
mhm,
has some really interesting. They in 2024 they did a national survey to try to estimate the support for Christian nationalism in all 50 states. And they say 3 in 10 Americans qualify as a Christian nationalism adherent or sympathizer when you go about everybody. With
mhm,
partisanship, media habits, age, and education levels, of course, linked to how much support. The majority of Republicans qualify as either adherents or sympathizers 20% adherents, 33% sympathizers. 2 in 10 or fewer independents, 6% adherents, 16% sympathizers, and Democrats, 5% adherents, 11% sympathizers. Two-thirds of Americans who trust most far-right TV news sources qualify as Christian nationalism adherents, 26%, or sympathizers, 40%, as do the majority of those who trust Fox News. When you realize a third of the GOP is definitely in the Christian nationalist tent,
mhm.
and that becomes scary because they want to change the country very, very distinctly. And they really want their beliefs to become the way the world is run.
Yeah.
Um, and that, when you start looking at numbers, like it said, over half of those who attend religious services weekly qualify as Christian nationalism adherents or sympathizers. Which, when you look at the Southern Baptist Church being the largest Protestant denomination in the country, and they have about a third, and I know for a fact they've taught Christian nationalism since I've known about them. Um,
And that the last point that Glenn just um, put up in the chat, it's more about their feelings about the Bible or the Constitution rather than any knowledge of either,
oh yeah,
is exactly true. It's they have become their own philosophers on theology and on government without reading either one. Like,
right.
there's a distinct lack of knowledge on either. Like, the pulpit doesn't teach faith
Well, Dan
in.
Patrick and who's Dan Patrick is part of Wall Builders, or at least he has been ancillary to them. Tim Barton, David Barton, and Rick Green are the Wall Builders show. And they're the ones who pull out, they cherry pick out of the Constitution and the letters from our founding fathers and use that to quote unquote prove that everybody were Christians and that we were meant to be a Christian nation. We were not meant to be a secular government.
Mhm.
And
It's
I know,
which is interesting because our founding fathers were not Christian for the
no,
most part. Most of them were deist or
mhm,
humanist, um, and as close to what might be considered an atheist of their time,
right.
without the atheism part. Like, they didn't, we're not a Christian nation. We're not. There is a wall built into our government, into our constitution, into our founding documents that say, no, we are a democracy, and a democracy requires no state religion, no state mandated
Right.
religion. You have the freedom to practice whatever religion you want or not practice a religion either.
Right.
You have freedom of and freedom from religion,
And
which
you have
means
the
the
freedom,
government, yep, the government cannot
Muslim, Jewish,
mandate you to be a certain religion, and they cannot mandate that you are not a religion. They can't say you have to be atheist or non-secular in any ways. They cannot establish or favor a religion in any way. Yet here we are, where the only laws that are being created are either specifically coming from the Bible or the Book of fucking Mormon. That's really it. And it pisses me off
right.
so much because they're praying in the Capitol steps and praying in the well of Congress before they pass bills to murder people. Like, the big bullshit bill is going to kill
Mhm.
millions of Americans. I don't know
Yep.
how else to say that. It's a murder bill. It's going to kill millions of Americans. How do I know that? Because hospitals are shutting down, clinics are shutting down, people are going to die. Veterans are losing health care. How do I know this? Because I'm a disabled veteran who uses the VA, who had his primary doctor quit
Right.
on a team that already had like half staff anyway. We're now down to like a quarter staff on our teams. So people are going to die. Like, there's no better way to put it. They're murdering Americans, and they're wrapped in the flag, and they're coming at you saying, "Oh, you can't question me or my laws because God said, and we're Christians, and if you hurt our feelings, you're
Mm.
canceling Christianity, or you're canceling Christmas, or you're canceling us somehow." Shut the fuck up, snowflakes. Go fuck yourselves. You guys are the problem here.
Well, I hate to do this, but I said today'd have to be short so I could get to the parade and pretend to
No,
be a Democrat on the float.
no, you're good.
So,
I'm glad I was able to get that little bit of a rant out there because I have so many feels on this. It really like
oh, me too.
I just it pisses me off so much because it affects me personally because
Yeah,
Nazis killed my family. Jewish Star of David. Nazis killed my fucking family. Nazis
you
killed
know,
my family. And I don't want it to happen again. I have a daughter. She has less rights than her mother did
yep.
when my wife was born.
Mhm.
Like, period, full stop. Not fucking okay.
Right.
That is Christian nationalism coming to fruition.
Yep.
That is control and the patriarchy from Christian nationalism destroying our nation.
Yep.
That's who they are.
And we are
So
looking like complete idiots to the international community on top of it.
exactly. We look
So.
fucking stupid. We look weak. We look stupid. We look literally like Soviet Russia before it collapsed.
Since I did this, I'm going to end up ending all of us when I say goodbye.
Yeah,
So
hold
I'm
on.
sorry
Let me get
about
back.
that.
Let me get back to my thing so I can copy our sat down and keep that for records. But thank
Okay.
you everyone for coming.
Thank you. I'll see
Have a
y'all
great
soon.
day, y'all.
Bye bye.
Talk to you again soon.